Good morning, good morning. Happy Thursday. Guys, you guys know, if you guys don't see me days on top of days, then you guys know that I'm extremely busy or I don't have a content for you guys. So happy Thursday, beautiful people. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for, giving me your patience of watching the content at time. Guys, the channel's been growing for a little bit now, and I want to thank all the loyal subscribers and all the loyal viewers that come around and watch the content. Now, guys, this is troubling and disturbing, but we're not surprised. A lot of things are happening in the world that we have our eyes open, and we're wondering when a lot of people, everybody else, or other groups are going to get their fair share of society. We know that we're living in a world nowadays days that a lot of people are pushing some weird agendas, but at the end of the day, it's not us. It's not for us to judge. So we're just gonna really, literally, you know, kiss our teeth and pass and unpack this content greatly. Now, guys, it's a long paragraph, so I'm gonna read from the best of my ability, and then I am going to play the audio for you guys. All right. So let's get into this quick and fast. A sex offender received gender surgery. A court will decide if she should be transferred to a woman's prison. Okay? So obviously the sex offender was a male and now turned to a woman. Let's continue. Transgender woman goes to court after Corrections Canada refuses transfer, citing risk to a female inmates. Now, there was a story in the past where a so-called transgender was transferred somewhere to a female prison, and then he did knock up a couple of the females. We're also going to use it as an example when we get further down in our content. All right, let's continue. Amanda Cooper, a transgender inmate seeking to transfer to a woman's prison currently incarcerated at Millhaven Institution, Men Maximum Security Prison, located west of Kingston, Ontario. A transgender woman incarcerated as a dangerous offender since 2001 for sex offenses against multiple women wants a judge to order Correctional Service of Canada to transfer her from the men's prison system to a woman institution following her recent gender surgery. Then I'm appalled and disturbed because if you are a serious sex offender against women, it's women prison they should put you after you got a sex change. And if you're a sex offender, how come you were able to get a sex change? But we're not surprised. Let's continue. Correctional officials have opposed requests from Amanda Joy Cooper, change his name as well, okay, 58, to be moved to a woman prison, citing in court records her risk to reoffend and a history of obsessive attachments to female staff. Included, she would pose a very high risk to the safety of the other inmates, which I would think, right? A hearing in the case is set for next week in federal court, with her Nova Scotia lawyer arguing that Cooper should be sent to a woman's prison because her sex post-surgery is now female as defined in correctional policy, and she fears for her safety in the men facility. Oh, man. While the placement of offenders who identify as transgender women has been a source of debate for years, Cooper is one of the few currently in federal custody who have had full gender surgery, and one of an even smaller number of post inmates denied transfer to women prison. I think it's complicated. So here's this person in prison doing time, serious offender, but they were able to do surgery. And you have people in prison need a heart surgery, need all kind of surgery, and still can't get the time to do that surgery. So I find it odd and strange, but I'm not surprised. This person sounds like they're very privileged, right? Let's continue. I think it's complicated, said Rosemary, a professor at a Memorial University in Newfoundland who has researched transgender prison policy, including a study involving interviews with dozens of federal correctional officers. I think it's really, really complicated because each human being has rights and we have to adhere and do our best to meet those rights. So meeting one person's right can compromise another and vice versa, I would think. All right? Applying for the transfer. The current federal policy dictates that transgender inmates can apply to transfer to a men's or women's prison according to their gender identity or expression. Requests are examined on a case-by-case basis, including an assessment of needs, risk, and health and safety concerns. But now we know that this is a sex offender. We know that he is a high offender, and we know that he likes to mess around with women. Yes? Let's continue. Over an 8-year period up to March 2025, there were 129 requests for inmates assigned male at birth to be placed or transferred into women institution. According to the figure provided by Correction Canada, about the dozen were approved, with the remainder either denied 72 or withdrawn 22. All right? Gender diverse offenders represents about 1% of federal inmates. As of October, there were 90 who identify as transgender women, including no more than a dozen who had gender surgery. 17 were housed in women facilities, and the remaining 73 in men's prison. Jessica Rose, a lawyer with Path Legal who represents Amanda Cooper, is shown in her office. Cooper was born in Montreal in 1967 and committed numerous sex offenses in the area as a man before being sentenced as a dangerous offender. A psychiatrist noted Cooper urges, and the judge in the case said that the offender does not hesitate to use his strength, weight, and size to control his victims. Cooper is currently incarcerated at Millhaven Institution, a men's maximum security prison located west of Kingston, Ontario. According to an affidavit she filed in court, she was assessed for gender, dysphoria in 2017 and began identifying as a woman 3 years later. So imagine you pounce on woman, beat on woman, abuse woman, sexual assault woman, control woman, almost in the term of kidnapping woman, but yet so now you want to turn to be a woman. Make that make sense for me? I'm not sure, but let's continue. It says she, but I'm going to say he. He underwent gender surgery, in September 2024. So how do you go underwent surgery and you're in prison? How do you go for surgery and you're in prison and the surgery is not something serious like a heart problem, a cancer issue, or some situation of that sort? They allow you, prisoner, sex offender, dangerous sex offender, to be privileged and have surgery. Oh, this world. Man, you got some people that are privileged, real privilege. Seriously? Anyhow, let's continue. Oh God, God be unto us. Oh Father God, I tell you. She underwent gender surgery in September 2024. She now has a vagina and a breast. Oh Father God, oh. Doctors out here playing God. Oh. Doctors are out here fully in effect. So now man left from having a penis to be having a vagina. Oh. God, where have you been in this midst of this wicked world? She now has vagina and breasts. She has no penis. Her correctional records now list her sex as a female. Since her surgery, Cooper has been in what she described as self-imposed isolation in a structure intervention unit, the term used by Correction Canada for units that place solitary confinement in 2019. According to the affidavit, she has been bullied and threatened by male inmates and one grabbed her buttocks. She said she fears physical and sexual violence and has been repeatedly called all kind of name and terms. She said she only leaves her cell to make phone calls for healthcare education and programs and for meetings. On average, I am out of my cell only a couple hours per day at most, she said in the affidavit. On the weekend, sometimes I am out of the cell only 20 to 30 minutes per day. As a result, I have very little meaningful social interaction. At the hearing next week, Cooper lawyer Jessica Rose, will ask a judge to order that Cooper be sent immediately to a women's prison even before her full judicial review in the case is decided. At the heart of the argument in favor of transfer, Rose points to a Correctional Service of Canada Commissioner Directive issue in 2022 that states the sex of an offender is determined solely by their current genitalia. As you know, this person had surgery, now is a woman, right? Even if the Correction Canada is reluctant to move an inmate who requests a transfer based on their gender identity, Rose argues that the directive indicates officials should house them based on their current sex, which is so-called a female now because he did a surgery. From our perspective, Amanda's gender identity and her genitalias align. She's physically a woman. She identifies as a woman. Rose said in an interview at her Dartmouth office, where she does work for Path Legal, a law firm associated with Elizabeth Fry Society of mainland Nova Scotia. She is a post-gender affirmation surgery at top and bottom. So from our perspective, there's no legal basis for CSC to be maintaining her in a men's prison, regardless of whatever security or safety consideration they may be relying on. The lawyer added, their message to us and her message to the court is, I am a woman with a vagina in a men's prison. You think I am safe here? So no, you are a sex offender, like to prey on women, you were locked up and you concoct a plan to do a sex change and now you're crying wolf to get out. Just my opinion. Seriously. But Correction Canada has major concern outlining internal records and court affidavit if Cooper were to be transferred to a women's prison. Up until 2018, much of her time in federal custody was spent in a special handling unit, a super maximum men's prison in Quebec, where she was sent in 2002 for threatening to sexually assault and kill a female staff, according to the records. So here you are in prison after sexual assaulting women, high offender, and then you're in a prison trying to threaten a female staff to kill her and sexual assault her. You're brave. And they gave you a sex transgender surgery after all of that? I guess everybody has a right, I guess. Let's continue. In the affidavit from last September, a parole officer said Cooper had been increasingly verbally abusive toward female staff in recent months, and there were a number she was not allowed to have contact with. Overall, CSC believes that the applicant gender identity hormone treatments and gender-affirming surgery have in no way mitigated her risk to reoffend, the affidavit said. She denies that the offense cycle that currently exists is accurate, believing that the offense cycle belongs to her dead self. This claim does not show accountability from the offender, as she places the blame on her dead identity rather than her current self. I find it odd and strange, guys, because at the end of the day, guys, it's in your mind. So whether you did surgery with your vagina or not, it's in your mind. You don't have to use your real penis to offend or to commit a sexual act. You can use dildo, you can use stick, you can use board, you can use all kind of manner of evil to sexual assault a woman. So whether you did sex change or transgender surgery, you're still remaining that you're a high sex offender and you're in a men prison and you went to go do surgery and now you want to transfer to a woman prison. Oh man, you're very privileged and strong and wrong, but what can we say? It's your right. The Correctional Service argues women prison are run differently than men's, with most female inmates living in a congregated settings and under less supervision. Introducing Cooper to a women's prison would require so much security it could create an apprehension and fear among the other inmates, which I would think. The documents noted Cooper had been providing with women clothing while in men prison, as well as accessories such as nail polish. She also only to be strip searched by female officers. Oh my, privilege. History of sex offenses. So remember I said to you guys that this is a male. This is a male that went on a rampage, a high risk sex offender, got time, doing time in prison. While he was in prison, end up do a transgender surgery, do the surgery from a man, now a woman, asking now to go to a woman prison. So the question I'm asking, if you're in prison, are you supposed to do surgery? If it's not a heart problem, a kidney problem, a cancer problem, and all of the rest of the medical terms. Should you able to do a sex change and it's not medical in a prison? That's how privileged sex offenders are. But let me guess, sex offender is very privileged. And let me guess, sex offender don't look like the regular normal society. Because you couldn't be so privileged knowing that you're a sex offender. Let's continue. Parole and court documents detail a history of multiple sex offenses, like I said, committed with Cooper when Cooper went under a different name and identified as a male. So watch this again. Not only that Cooper was able to do a sex change and be a woman, he was able to change his name. So this man is a sex offender and want to fly underneath the radar of being a woman. Not only that, want to blame the sex offenses on the all male self, because now Cooper has vagina and breasts. Oh, woe be unto the doctors. Woe be unto you, doctor, to know so this man has a penis and then you change it to be a vagina. Woe be unto you, man. So you guys are out here making humans. You guys are out here determining you guys self as God. Oh, Father God, if you're not busy, stop on here today, Thursday, to hear all of these transgressions and all of these sins that are happening on earth. Allegedly, I am not judging. Just saying, seriously. Parole and court documents detail a history of multiple sex offenses committed when Cooper went under different name and identified as a male. Cooper offending began early. Adolescent sexual assaulting women in the street. It accumulated in 1998 when over the course of several days following release from prison for sex crimes. All right? Cooper grabbed and threatened to rape a 12-year-old girl in a parking lot and sexually assault two women. So from 1998, people were in 2026, Cooper been a predator out here. And Cooper find a way to F over the system by doing a sex change. Because once you turn a woman out here, there's different clause, different rules. All right? And all of these things. Okay? He started his sex gender situation in 2017. He underwent surgery, and I'm not saying she. He underwent surgery in September 2024 while this man is in prison. What did the doctor added? Vagina and breasts. Oh, Father God. Moving all the way on, asking for a transfer to go and sit and live with women in prison, knowing that he violated women in the past, knowing that he was in the men prison all this time, threatening the guard to kill the guard, the female guard, and to sexual assault her. And now the law is saying transfer this so-called man who's a woman now to a woman facility that you have less security, less search, and all of these things. What? I am not surprised. Only the privileged these rules apply to. Let's continue to unpack. Oh, Father God, I tell you. So all the way, guys, all the way in the offenses, like I said, Cooper grabbed and threatened to rape a 12-year-old girl in the parking lot and sexual assaulted 2 women. One of the women who had parked at the mall managed to flee her car following a struggle with Cooper, letting out what a witness later described as a death cry. Georgia. In 2018, shortly after being transferred out of a special handling unit, Cooper sexually assaulted a female prison worker, according to the court documents. So Cooper been out here on a rampage, not only on little girls. You will call him almost a pedo, because if you're a big ass man and you try to rape a 12-year-old child, then you are almost a pedophile. But they never even label you as that. They label you as a sex offender. Come on now. You should add a pedophile on top of it. Not only that, guys, while he was in prison, he assaulted a female prison worker. After that, guys, he also threatened to kill a guard, a female guard, and to sexual assaulted her. So therefore, this man is not cured, although he has vagina underneath him. So what did I say to you? It's all about in your mind. They could cut off your penis, cut off your balls, castrate you. Whatever it's in your mind, that's what you're going to think. You don't need a penis to assault someone. You don't, society nowadays days put all of these nastiness in a bedroom, that a woman don't need a man and a man don't need a woman to carry on all of their nastiness in the bedroom. So a man don't need a penis or his balls attached to his penis to do any assault to a woman. He can use a dildo. He can use a stick. He can use name everything that a man can use on a woman. So I'm just going to literally kiss my teeth and pass to know, say this is a dangerous offender, but the dangerous offender was able to change his name, change his sex organs, or sex parts, or body parts. Could you imagine? How privileged can you be? So that's why you guys see me so early in the morning unpacking the story on a Thursday morning, because I'm baffled, lost for words, but I'm not surprised. When you're privileged, these are the things that occur. Let's continue. So taxpayers is paying for his food in prison, paying for everything in prison, including his surgery. Taxpayers. And this man is a high-level sex offender, a.k.a. Mr. Pedo, because he tried to assault a 12-year-old child. Oh, let's continue to unpack. Heather Mason, a former federal inmate who co-founded an organization now suing the federal government over the policy allowing what the group calls trans-identified male inmates to move into women prison, said Cooper should not be granted the transfer she seeks. Well, exactly. I wouldn't grant that either, because this man is a high-level sex offender, sexual assault, a jail worker, a prison worker, threatened to a sexual assault a jail guard, manage to concoct a plan to do a transgender surgery while you're in prison. It wasn't a heart problem. It was not kidney problem. It was not cancer problem. It wasn't nothing of medical issue. Just want to change your penis to a vagina. Just want to change your board chest to have breasts. And now you want to go to a prison to go hang out with women that you hate, that you want to be like, and that you violated and assaulted in the past. Oh, what a world we're living in. But only Almighty God can wash away some of these sins. And only Almighty God can come down and save some of us from all of these worldly sins. Let's continue. Mason Organization, Canadian women, sex-based rights advocate for spaces such as washrooms and locker rooms to be segregated by sex. Sexual violence isn't prevented by surgery. Like I said, Mason said Cooper Case Correctional Service of Canada has already said that the individual behavior and history make them a high risk to women. The assessment matters for more than autonomy. And I would think, not because you want to go be a woman, you're more softer. Because you have women out here are very barbaric as well. And then you have women as well participating in these kind of sports. And we have to say sports. When men are out here kidnapping women and putting them in sex trafficking. And when you look at a woman right there who's supposed to have empathy and sympathy. And I would say allegedly. Okay, let's continue. Prison operates very differently from the outside world. Well, obviously, she said it's close confinement, quarters that inmates can leave, and many incarcerated women have themselves been victims in the past. It doesn't matter the intention of a transgender prisoner. Mesa said, female inmates will not view them as a woman. Well, duh. I would think, no matter what surgery you get, no matter what pills you're popping, and all of these things, it doesn't matter. She said in the alternative is for a Corrections Canada, okay, to dictate a wing of a prison to a gender diverse inmates where they can receive programs and support tailored to them. Corrections Canada declined to do an interview about the transfer of transgender inmates. In a statement, a spokesperson said its policy reflects on a CSC commitment to respecting gender identity and expression in accordance with the Canadian Human Rights Act. If health and safety concerns are identified and they cannot be effectively mitigated, the placement or transfer request may be denied. The statement said in all cases, measures are implemented to support the person's gender-related needs where they reside. The statement noted inmates unhappy with the decision can turn to Correction Canada internal complaints and grievance process and internal bodies such as Canadian Human Rights Commission and the Office of Correctional Investigator. So tell me what you guys think. You guys think it's okay for this transgender who is a high sex offender, to get transferred to a woman prison? Not only that, do you think it was right or he had rights for him to do surgery while serving his time as being a pervert in prison? I am not sure. So guys, I want to give you guys the audio. And the audio is a little bit long. So listen to the audio, please.
A sex offender receives gender surgery. A court will decide if she should be transferred to a women's prison. Transgender woman goes to court after Corrections Canada refuses transfer, citing risk to female inmates. Richard Cuthbertson, CBC News, posted, February 18, 2026, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A transgender woman incarcerated as a dangerous offender since 2001 for sex offenses against multiple women wants a judge to order Correctional Service of Canada to transfer her from the men's prison system to a women's institution following her recent gender surgery. Correctional officials have opposed requests from Amanda Joy Cooper, 58, to be moved to a women's prison, citing in court records her risk to reoffend and history of obsessive attachments to female staff, concluding she would pose a very high risk to the safety of the other inmates. A hearing in the case is set for next week in federal court, with her Nova Scotia lawyer arguing that Cooper should be sent to a women's prison because her sex, post-surgery, is now female as defined in correctional policy, and she fears for her safety in a men's facility. While the placement of offenders who identify as transgender women has been a source of debate for years, Cooper is one of the few currently in federal custody who have had full gender surgery, and one of an even smaller number of post-operative inmates denied transfer to women's prison. I think it's complicated, said Rosemary Ricciardelli, a professor at Memorial University in Newfoundland who has researched transgender prison policy, including a study involving interviews with dozens of federal correctional officers. I think it's really, really complicated, because each human being has rights and we have to adhere and do our best to meet those rights. So meeting one person's rights can't compromise another, and vice versa.
I would think.
Applying for transfer. The current federal policy dictates that transgender inmates can apply to transfer to a men's or women's prison according to their gender identity or expression. Requests are examined on a case-by-case basis, including an assessment of needs, risks, and health and safety concerns. Over an 8-year period up to March 2025, there were 129 requests from inmates assigned male at birth to be placed or transferred into women's institutions, according to figures provided by Corrections Canada. About 3 dozen were approved, with the remainder either denied, 72, or withdrawn, 22. Gender-diverse offenders represent about 1% of federal inmates. As of October, there were 90 who identified as transgender women, including no more than a dozen who have had gender surgery. 17 were housed in women's facilities and the remaining 73 in men's prisons. Cooper was born in Montreal in 1967 and committed numerous sex offenses in the area as a man before being sentenced as a dangerous offender. A psychiatrist noted Cooper's sadistic urges, and the judge in the case said the offender does not hesitate to use his strength, weight, and size to control his victims.
Well, obviously.
Cooper is currently incarcerated at Millhaven Institution, a men's maximum security prison located west of Kingston, Ontario. According to an affidavit she filed in court, she was assessed for gender dysphoria in 2017 and began identifying as a woman 3 years later.
You hear that?
She underwent gender surgery in September 2024. She now has a vagina and breasts. She has no penis. Her correctional records now list her sex as female. Since her surgery, Cooper has been in what she described as self-imposed isolation in a structured intervention unit, the term used by Corrections Canada for units that replaced solitary confinement in 2019. According to her affidavit, she has been bullied and threatened by male inmates, and one grabbed her buttocks. She said she fears physical and sexual violence, and has been repeatedly called a derogatory term. She said she only leaves her cell to make phone calls, for health care, education, and programs, and for meetings. On average, I am out of my cell only a couple hours per day at most, she said in the affidavit. On weekends, sometimes I am out of the cell only 20 to 30 minutes per day. As a result, I have very little meaningful social interaction. You think I'm safe here? At the hearing next week, Cooper's lawyer, Jessica Rose, will ask a judge to order that Cooper be sent immediately to a women's prison, even before her full judicial review in the case is decided. At the heart of the argument in favor of transfer, Rose points to a Correctional Service of Canada Commissioner's directive issued in 2022 that states the sex of an offender is determined solely by their current genitalia. Even if Corrections Canada is reluctant to move an inmate who requests a transfer based on their gender identity, Rose argues the directive indicates officials should house them based on their current sex. From our perspective, Amanda's gender identity and her genitals align. She is physically a woman, she identifies as a woman, Rose said in an interview at her Dartmouth, NS, office where she does work for Path Legal, a law firm associated with the Elizabeth Fry Society of mainland Nova Scotia. She is post-gender confirmation affirmation surgery at top and bottom. So from our perspective, there's no legal basis for CSC to be maintaining her in a men's prison, regardless of whatever security or safety considerations they may be relying on.
Wow.
The lawyer added, her message to us and her message to the court is, I'm a woman with a vagina in a men's prison. You think I'm safe here? Major concerns. But Corrections Canada has major concerns, outlined in internal records and court affidavits, if Cooper were to be transferred to a women's prison. Up until 2018, much of her time in federal custody was spent in the Special Handling Unit, a super-maximum men's prison in Quebec, where she was sent in 2002 after threatening to sexually assault and kill female staff, according to records. In an affidavit from last September, a parole officer said Cooper had been increasingly verbally abusive toward female staff in recent months, and there were a number she was not allowed to have contact with. Overall, CSC believes that the applicant's gender identity, hormone treatments, and gender-affirming surgery have in no way mitigated her risk to reoffend, the affidavit said. She denies that the offense cycle that currently exists is accurate, believing that the offense cycle belongs to her dead self. This claim does not show accountability from the offender as she places the blame on her dead identity rather than her current self. The Correctional Service argues women's prisons are run differently than men's, with most female inmates living in congregated settings and under less supervision. Introducing would require so much security it could create apprehension and fear among the other inmates. The documents note Cooper has been provided with women's clothing while in men's prison, as well as accessories such as nail polish. She is also only to be strip-searched by female officers. History of sex offenses. Parole and court documents detail a history of multiple sex offenses committed when Cooper went under a different name and identified as male. Cooper's offending began in early adolescence, sexually assaulting women in the street. It culminated in 1998 when, over the course of several days following release from prison for sex crimes, Cooper grabbed and threatened to rape a 12-year-old girl in a parking lot and sexually assaulted 2 women. One of the women, who had parked at a mall, managed to flee her car following a struggle with Cooper, letting out what witnesses later described as a death cry.
Gotcha.
In 2018, shortly after being transferred out of the Special Handling Unit, Cooper sexually assaulted a female prison worker, according to court documents. Heather Mason, a former federal inmate who co-founded an organization now suing the federal government over its policy allowing what the group calls trans-identifying male inmates to move into women's prison, said Cooper should not be granted the transfer she seeks. Mason's organization, Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights, advocates for spaces such as washrooms and locker rooms to be segregated by sex. Sexual violence isn't prevented by surgery, Mason said of the Cooper case. Correctional Service of Canada has already said that this individual's behavior and history make them a high risk to women. That assessment matters far more than anatomy. Prison operates very differently from the outside world, she said. It's close, confined quarters that an inmate can't leave, and many incarcerated women have themselves been victims in the past. It doesn't matter the intentions of a transgender prisoner, Mason said, female inmates will not view them as a woman. She said an alternative is for Corrections Canada to dedicate a wing of a prison to gender-diverse inmates, where they can receive programs and support tailored to them. Corrections Canada declined to do an interview about the transfer of transgender inmates. In a statement, a spokesperson said its policy reflects CSC's commitment to respecting gender identity and expression, in accordance with the Canadian Human Rights Act. If health or safety concerns are identified and cannot be effectively mitigated, the placement or transfer request may be denied, the statement said. In all cases, measures are implemented.
So there you go, guys. So do you guys think it's right for the transgender should move to a woman prison? Although now he doesn't have a penis, he has vagina. But in the past, you had a woman, you had a transgender inmate in New Jersey prison became pregnant from a transgender convict. And we're going to get there. All right? Although this man has a penis, although this man left his penis on the doctor's table, now he has a vagina. So this was in the past. Like I'm saying to you guys that the transgender business don't work out at times, because here was a transgender end up in a woman prison and end up getting the woman, them couple of the women them pregnant in the past. So these things them don't work out. But I guess in Cooper's situation, Cooper was a male, left his vagina on the chopping table, end up having a vagina, left his penis on the chopping table, now has a vagina and breasts. So does that make Cooper different than this case that I'm going to show you now in the past? Let's get there. One second.
So in modern America, if you point out that biological sex is a physical reality, you can be fired from your job. The Washington Post will send a reporter to your house to intimidate you, but it doesn't change anything. Denying reality doesn't change reality. You could say gravity isn't real, but if you jump off the roof of your garage, you're still going to get hurt. And that's true for biological sex. It is, in fact, real, whether the authorities admit it or not. Officials in New Jersey are learning that lesson this week. 2 female inmates at a supposedly all-women's prison in New Jersey have just become pregnant. You wonder how that happened. Well, it turns out those women had sexual encounters with another inmate who was a biological man passing as a woman. Now, some people predicted that this would happen, and they were laughed at, mocked, and attacked as bigots. Kara Dansky is at the very top of that list. She said this years ago on our show. She's the president of the U.S. chapter of the Women's Declaration International, author of the book The Abolition of Sex, How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls, and we are happy to have Kara Dansky back. Kara, thanks so much for coming on. I'll never forget the first time, and it had to have been at least 4 years ago, when you said, if we keep going down this path, we're going to have biological men in women's prisons.
Yep,
And you were
so
right.
said, so done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. You know, though, the story that's happening in New Jersey is obviously horrible for so many reasons. We need to not have men being housed in women's prisons. But a couple takeaways from this that I just want to point out are, first of all, the state is not getting away with this by telling its residents that they are housing men in women's prisons. What they are doing, of course, is telling the residents that they are
Implemented to
housing
support the
so-called
person's gender religion.
transgender women or trans women in women's prisons, suggesting that there is some sort of subcategory of women that is called transgender women or trans women, and it's not true. The fact of this story shoots a hole right through the trope that trans women are women. Our society has been taught that we are supposed to say and think that trans women are women, but obviously
They're
that is
not.
not true, because the individuals that are the focus of the story impregnated women, and every thinking adult, no matter what the President of the United States has to say on the matter, knows that there is no category of women who can impregnate women. So I really want to thank you for highlighting this story. And I also just want to point out that this is not just a problem in New Jersey. This is a problem across the country.
Yep.
I know that we have talked previously about how the state of California recently enacted a law at the end of 2020, which went into effect in 2021, which mandates that men be housed in women's prisons on the basis of their so-called gender identity if they say that they are women. Washington State has a similar policy. However, this is not just happening in blue states. This is happening across the country. As far as I know, 49 states plus the District of Columbia have some form of law or policy in place that mandates the housing of men in women's prisons.
Why is it left to you and J.K. Rowling and a couple of others to point this out? Where are the physicians who know perfectly well that what you're saying is true, the biologists who know it every bit as well? Why are they going along with this when they know it's a lie?
So the entire medical establishment in the United States has been captured by so-called trans ideology. And what I really want all Americans across the political spectrum to understand is that trans is not a civil rights movement to protect a marginalized community of people. It is a multi-trillion-dollar industry
Yep.
that is pushing this. It is paying
To
the
turn out
medical
the man them.
establishment. It is paying most media outlets. It is paying
Allegedly to turn out the man them, and allegedly to stop babies for stopping the count of babies, for the reproduction of women. Think about it. So this transgender situation been going on for a while until I had to come and read about it, guys. So let's continue. This is crazy.
government. It is paying our schools. It is at all levels, elementary schools through college,
Yep.
to push the idea that the material reality of sex does not exist, and that what is more important than the material reality of sex is so-called gender identity. This is all being pushed by a multi-trillion-dollar industry in the guise of a civil rights movement.
Yep.
It's all
They
a
need
lie.
where they reside.
And these are the people providing our
State
medical
noted
care.
inmates
It's
To
really
turn out the
scary
man
when you
them.
put it
They
that
are.
way.
I
Thank
know someone
Can
who
you
is a
imagine?
medical student right now, and she is horrified about what's being taught. I do just want to say really quickly, there's something that has been announced in the past couple of weeks called the Women's Bill of Rights. This was drafted by members of the Women's Liberation Front and by members of Independent Women's Voices, supported by my organization, Women's Declaration.
So we're not going to drag this out. So my question is, do you believe that Cooper, who was a man, high level of a sex offender, incarcerated in a man prison, went on to do surgery in a man prison, now left his penis on the chopping board, now have vagina and breasts? You think that this high society pervert sex offender should be going to a woman prison? That's what the story is all about. And we heard about a transgender in a woman prison that got 2 inmates pregnant in the past. But people would say that this situation is different because Cooper now has a vagina and a breast like the woman, which the other transgender acting like a woman, say he was a woman, taking hormone pills, but still had a penis and still was able to go and house with the females and got them pregnant in the past. So is it the same story? Is transgender is the same? Do you consider a transgender person as a woman or a male? If you're a woman and you transition into a man, should we say you are a he? I am not sure. Or should we go through your biological documents that say you're a male or a female and we should go on that check? Or should we kiss our teeth and check and say other? Or should we kiss our teeth and say transgender? I am not sure, people. I'm not here to judge. I just brought the story onto you guys because I was baffled, lost for words, to know that people can be in prison and have sex transgender surgery. Okay? In a surgery while you're incarcerated. Okay? Let me take off this for a second. So remember, this person was incarcerated as a dangerous offender since 2001. Realize he's not really coming out of the prison for now. Joy Cooper, 58, now to be moved to a woman's prison because he did sex way back, sex post-surgery, now is a female and is feared for his life. Remember, when in there's a male, okay, and had full gender surgery, all right, and all of these things, I now have breasts and vagina. I now have breasts and vagina. Okay? So do you think that this man should able, one second, to be transferred to a woman prison? All right? So right now, he wants a transfer. End up doing a gender surgery. All right? Okay? Not a lot of people who ask for a transfer usually get a transfer. All right? Okay, guys? So it's troubling and disturbing for me. So I am going to move from that and kiss my teeth and pass. I'm not staying long with you guys. So I want to drop this. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Okay? Right there. We also gonna big up this the admiration of respect of the sinners. Actor Delroy Lindo is testament of his enduring impact with all of these awards and stuff like that. We're gonna big up this black man on Black History in the Black History Month of what's going on. All right? All of that and a bag of chips. We also get to understand that Donald Obama responded to Donald Trump and his ape story and stuff like that. But I don't have enough time to unpack all of that. But I'll come back another day with a story or two. Okay, guys? So that's the content of the day. Thank you guys for stopping by. I'll try my best to come on with a content now and then. But nevertheless, guys, watch the shorts and watch the videos. Bye.